morning, everybody. I'm Melissa Nielsen with Waldorf Essentials. I'm going to play with my lights here in just a minute. There, that's a little bit better. I hope you are ready to have a great week. I thought I'd talk about a few things today. First, I missed you guys. We've had the last 2 weeks with the awesome, amazing Kimberly Parsons, who's my co-author on our music curriculum, and she sent some great videos. So if you haven't caught those and you're still trying to figure out the best way to teach our music curriculum, please go back and watch those. They're on our Monday videos as well as here on our Facebook page. So please go back and watch those and get some help if you need some help. Also, feel free to shout out and ask either Kimberly or myself a question. I'll probably defer it to Kimberly because she's the expert. But please feel like you can ask us questions about that, because that's why we're here. And anyway, I'm working on the winter today, the winter segment of that. So we should hopefully have that all good to go before the end of the month. So anyway, that's that. Let's see, the other thing, another announcement. We have our knit along that it started last week. We haven't actually started knitting yet. This last week is supposed to have been about picking up or getting all of your supplies. We're going to be dyeing yarn this week, and I'm waiting for my yarn to get here. So we'll be dyeing yarn as a group, and then we'll start the knit along. And the knit along is probably going to last through part of November as well, maybe all of November. I'm hoping that this is a great way for those of you who maybe aren't knitting to get busy knitting. Maybe you've knitted a few things and you're really wanting to sort of expand and get a little bit better, and this is a fun way to do that. So we have 2 projects in the knit along, 2 options, a really cute rainbow hat and a sweater. So feel free to jump on there if you have questions. Kelly and I will post the information about the knit along and the giveaway, because we're also doing a giveaway in the comments here on the video. So, okay, I think that's all the announcements. Yeah. So anyways, I want to start with our topic, which is triggers. So, and today is going to be, I think, just because of the nature of it being a particular national holiday in the United States, it's going to be full of that on the internet and everywhere. So I thought I would talk about triggers from a few different perspectives. One of the things that I work to do with Waldorf Essentials and with the inner work portions is to really help us be in a place to not feel victimized. And one of those things that it's tough, because we're the only ones that can allow ourselves to feel like that. And so often that happens because we see something that triggered a memory, that maybe we're working through something. And I get it. I've worked through some ugly things. I had really, really hard divorce that I worked through, some abuse, not a great parent situation as a child. I worked through some horrible things, and I do believe that we are all given different things that we're working through that help us grow. And some of those things are things that are horrible. But if we can look at it from a perspective of how can I grow from this, as awful as it is, then often we can learn how to sort of work through that, and we can help others too, because we are sort of this community of humanity, and learning to help others in a way that is constructive is it helps us. It helps us heal, and it helps them possibly whoever else might be going through something as well. So the thing with triggers is, first we have to identify what ours are. And the way that I've done that is I've really learned to think about, okay, how does this make me feel? Whether it's something that I've read on the internet, something that I read in a group. And I actually wanted to back up for a few minutes. And some of our regular viewers sort of watched me go through this, and so I want to talk about this as just sort of an understanding of how we work with families online. So I've taken some heat a couple of different times over the last few months about, why didn't you reveal your source about something? Why didn't you call somebody out for racism on the internet? Why didn't you? So I want to be very clear about my position as a Waldorf Essentials coach, as a life coach in general. When I'm in the groups that I'm on, and I've scaled back a whole lot. Right now I'm just in the ones that, and this is part of that reason, because it was too much. I think people were confused about my role, and now I think it's a little more clear. I'm in the Ask Melissa group, and I'm in the Thinking, Feeling, Willing groups, and that's where I spend the bulk of my time. And so if you need me, that's a great group to grab me in. People are a little bit confused about why I may not have called somebody out on something. And that must mean that I support what they say, because of course if I don't say something, I must be condoning it. And what I want to say to that is no. And I want to offer a qualifier or a reason why I have not called people out on some things. What you see publicly is never what's going on behind the scenes, ever. Especially when it comes to me and in my conversations with people that are public on the internet. Why? Because I have a lot of clients that I have, that we have privacy agreements with. So if I see somebody acting out on the internet, I'm not going to call them out on the internet, but I will call them out privately. I will have a conversation with them privately. So you need not worry about being the police for everybody. Just worry about yourself and how you're interacting with people. If you feel the need to make sure that I see something, by all means, drop me a PM. But don't ever assume that my not saying something is a condoning of something, because I always take care of it privately. Always. Because that's part of what I do. Why wouldn't I call somebody out publicly? Well, here's the reason. This conversation that we're having about triggers today, I probably know what that person's triggers are. And having their coach, somebody that they trust, call them out in public is not going to help that person. What will help that person is for me to go to them privately and say, I think we should maybe adjust some thinking here. I think that perhaps you've got some struggles that you don't realize. You've got some poop that you need to deal with. You've got some triggers here that aren't working. So I wanted to get that out of the way because, like I said, there's been a couple of different instances this summer and then early fall, where people have really raked me over the coals and called me some not very nice things because I haven't publicly shamed somebody. I'm not into public shaming. I will absolutely always take something private if it needs to be. Always. So again, if there's an interaction that you see me have online and you don't think I dealt with it fairly, send me a message. Don't go to another group and label me something nasty. Don't talk behind my back. If you have a question about something that Melissa Nielsen does, ask Melissa Nielsen. Ask me directly. Because, again, I hold a lot of privilege with these people. And by privilege, I'm not talking about the privilege that we see everywhere else, but I'm talking about the coach-client privilege. We keep a lot of things in between us. That's part of my privacy agreement. I'm not going to call somebody out because that would entail me then sharing all of their dirty laundry with people. And that's not what I'm about, because I'd be out of business really fast as a coach if I shared everybody's dirty laundry that I knew. And that's not what I do. What I do is I work to help people, and I work to help them through things. And like I said, don't assume that I'm not calling somebody out on something privately, because I do all the time. All the time. I help them work through things all the time. And sometimes it's a correction in how they're thinking about something. Sometimes it's a correction in, hey, maybe we should look at this resource over here because I think maybe you're getting some information that's not great information. Or do you realize that the words that you're saying, even though you don't mean for them to be nasty, mean, and hateful, are nasty, mean, and hateful? Maybe not to everybody, but to this person here. So I am asking you as your coach to please make amends with that situation. So I wanted to get that out of the way because I get a lot of questions about that. Why didn't you call somebody out on that? Why didn't? And I just want you to know that when you work with me, you work with me. You're not working with all of the internet. You're working with me, and that privacy that we have is a trust that's built. And I'm not about breaking that trust. I'm about keeping that trust, but also helping guide you in situations that may not be totally awesome on the internet. And that doesn't mean I'm the eyes and ears everywhere, because I'm not. I am not. So there's times that, which is one of the reasons why I stopped being the admin on a lot of those other groups, because I just don't have time. I want to make sure that the time that I do have is dedicated to people that want to hear what we have to say. And so I have concentrated my time on those, in those groups. I'm still on some of those other groups, but not in an administrative capacity. So again, if you have questions about something that I've done or something that I've said, please just ask me. I'm a really open person. I'm not easily offended. Just ask me. Now, if you come guns blazing and start shouting and telling me that I'm X, Y, and Z, I might get a little bit defensive, but I'm going to hopefully step back and go, all right, where's this person coming from? Which is what I feel like I've done in the past. And so I wanted to say that sort of because it does go part into this trigger thing. I see women every day that are on groups that are triggered by something, and what that comes, how that comes about is we're not all emotionally healthy when we come on the internet, and we might be having a bad day. We might have had something horrible in our real life, and it spills over into the internet. And then what happens is the internet crap, because that's really what it is, the crap that we get stuck in on the internet then flows into our personal lives. And I gotta tell you, I watched some of these arguments unfold, and I'm wondering what in the heck y'all are doing with your kids, because this is not how you want to parent. So I want to talk about triggers from that perspective. I want you to be able to step back and go, why do I feel this way? Oh, I have this knot in my stomach. Man, that person is racist, bigoted, give it the whole list. But does that energy is so nasty. And we have this desire to correct people if they're wrong. And I get that desire. That's us as human beings. We go, oh, well, that person's thinking's wrong. I'm going to type it and be a keyboard warrior and tell them exactly what I think. Well, I'm going to submit to you that you should step back and ask yourself, okay, why am I being triggered by that? Okay, well, maybe I'm being triggered by it because it is blatantly racist, or it is blatantly nationalist, or it is blatantly X, Y, and Z, or it is just mean, or it is abusive. That's why I'm being triggered by it. Take a deep breath. Ask yourself, what's engaging going to do for you? It may not do anything for you. It may just spiral you down, 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 down. And you don't want to be in that place, because guess what, ladies? It's harder to come back up when you're on the ground. I'm 44 years old. Getting off the ground is a lot harder than getting out of a chair. Just saying. So you don't want to end up all the way on the ground in the dirt. You'd like to keep yourself sort of, uplifted. So I want you to ask yourself before you dig into any online argument, and I'm not even talking about online arguments. I'm talking about arguments in general, even with people in real life, because guess what? There's a whole lot of casting pearls before swine that goes on everywhere. So I have to constantly ask myself, that person, not so great, but are they going to take what I have to say in a way that is constructive? Do I have a constructive way to give it? And am I just angry? Why am I angry? What they said, why did that trigger me so much? Why did that frustrate me so much? And can I just walk away? Because guess what? Holding the space for my kids, and Stephanie on here says, who's holding the space while you're trying to control others? Yes. Holding the space for my kids is so much more important than correcting somebody online. So much more important, because, we have the ability to make change, huge change within our home. We don't have the ability to make huge change within a group. It's amazing when somebody posts an article, posts a link, or says something so eloquently that it changes the tone of things. It's amazing. But guess what? It rarely happens. It rarely happens. People are very fixed in their mindset. That doesn't mean we shouldn't try to help, but we should make sure that it's not affecting us. It's not affecting how we live our lives. It's not affecting how we parent our children. So we have to look at that trigger and we have to go, why am I so triggered by that? Maybe I need to walk away. I need to walk away from the computer for a few hours. And I need to step back and realize that everything isn't right here in this argument. So that sort of, I wanted to sort of cover that because I see so much of it. And guess what? Today is one of those days where it's going to be horrible. So y'all, I think you should just walk away from the computer today. It's going to be very emotionally charged today. And you know what? Guess what? There are things happening in the news all the time that are emotionally charging. So I want to talk about triggers from a more basic perspective now. Talked about them when it comes to the internet, how we walk away from those. But, and really, there's really no great way, nothing great except for to say, I'm done here. I can't, in that you don't even need to type, I'm done here. You just need to get up and walk away. It speaks volumes when you disengage from a situation. But when it comes to other triggers, so we had some sad news, the situation in Las Vegas, and that's just one of horrible events that's continually happening on our planet. And I remember sort of thinking about this last night as I was preparing. I remember back during the Murrah Federal Building bombing, so that dates me. I was in my 20s, didn't have children yet. Early 20s, I think I was probably 22, maybe 23. And I remember it was the most horrible thing that I can remember as far as, with the exception of other world events, but it was the closest thing. I lived in Alabama at the time. I was going to school, married to my ex-husband. We were going to school there and working there, and I remember it being so jarring to me that we could have a terrorist on American soil. Like, it's so jarring. And I remember, I look back on it now, 20 years later, 22 years later, and I go, I was definitely very naive, but that's where I was in my development. We all grow as we get older. Hopefully, we sort of see things from a different perspective. But I remember it just shaking me to my core. And I remember having CNN on constantly because I just couldn't get enough information. Who would do this? Who would do this? And why would they do this? And what was there were so many people dead, and why? And we had some other mass shootings before that, but this seemed somehow to have triggered me in some way. And for those of you who follow me, I'm choleric, so I'm pretty bossy. I can keep my life pretty much online. I don't get distracted by a lot of emotionally charged things because I want to just part of my personality is I want to know why. But this specifically had me past that. I want to know why, and it had me in a depression and a funk. And I remember my ex-husband saying to me in one of his loving moments, what can I do to help you through this? Do you want to get in the car and drive there? Will it make you feel better if we get in the car and spend a day driving and get there and help what's going on there? And I remember him saying that was me snapping out of it, me going, oh, wait a minute. There's actually not a whole lot I can do right now. I have to go to work every day because we live paycheck to paycheck. We're going to school. The best thing I could do at the time was just really send my intentions for peace to those people and make sure that all my loved ones were cared for and really live to be the best, most peaceful person that I could be. It made me just sort of realize that there are times when we can't do anything. We can't do anything about what happened in Las Vegas. The analytical part of me, and I think this is, again, what a lot of people are seeing on the internet triggering, the analytical part of me wants to know, okay, what the heck was going on there? There's got to be something else going on there. And then, of course, there are people that are like, no, there was nothing else going on there. This was just a really sad situation. And, I can absolutely accept both sides of that. I think what we have to realize when we come in an online situation is we have people of differing temperaments. Some temperaments just need to know why. Other temperaments don't. Those temperaments are they have much more empathy, much more sympathy, and they're feeling very deeply for the situation that happened. While other temperaments are thinking, I got to know what the heck happened. So we bring those people together. These people are just feeling. These people want to know what the heck happened, and it's not mixing very well. And so I've seen some turmoil online about that. People really upset, and I think what I want to say is we really again have to step back and go, all right, differing temperaments are coming to the internet all the time. People have differing temperaments, differing places in their own emotional health. So the internet's not a great sounding board when it comes to everyday life. We sort of see this like keyhole, we see this little bit, but life is so much bigger. So disconnect from Facebook at least during those situations. Don't dive into those conversations. Don't find yourself just not being able to get enough of the news. And it's addictive. Eric and I were gone last week. We had a great time alone. First time in 12 years that we've been alone for any extended period of time. So I understand. I know a lot of moms understand that. It was the first time we'd ridden on an airplane alone together ever. So it was great. We had a good time. But one of the things that I noticed, because we don't usually watch TV, somehow when we're in hotels it ends up coming on more, and because of what had just happened in Las Vegas, it was on CNN, and we were watching news channels, and it's addictive. It's addictive. You want to know what happens, and then you got to know more, and you got to know more. It can become so addictive. So know your limits. I remember just laying there thinking, wow, we're alone in a hotel room together, and all I want to do is watch this dang news. Click, it's going off, because that is not healthy and it's not okay. So don't keep yourself riled up about what's going on. Step away. I have to tell myself, you don't need to know. You don't need to know exactly what happened. Step away. There are people that are working on that. That's not me turning my back on things, because let me just tell you, Eric and I are huge conspiracy theorists, huge, when we're looking at the government exploding all the time. We're having those conversations on a regular basis, but we're not embroiled in the news, and he might be a little bit more than I am, I will say that. But he can disconnect, and we disconnect, and we connect together. So disconnecting from that and connecting to human beings is what needs to happen in order for you to get out of that triggered space. So what happens if you are, maybe you have background of abuse, severe abuse, and you're really just trying to be on Facebook or be, in the world to learn some things, and somebody posts something really triggering. How do you work with that then? How do you step back from, oh my gosh, I just read this person's life story and it looks a lot like mine, and I just want to crawl in a hole and die? It happens. It totally happens. Again, step back, realize that it's a trigger. You have to realize that you're being triggered. If you, and I know it's sort of a buzzword now. People go, oh, stop triggering me, or, oh, you're triggering me. And so it's sort of become very, not, it doesn't have meaning. It doesn't have power, because people are being triggered everywhere. And so I'd really like to go back to the understanding what a trigger is, realizing that you have one, and then being able to deal with that. We want to be able to deal with that without having to spend months and months and months in therapy. We want to be able to come back to center. So part of that comes from knowing how to connect anyways. So I often talk about this connection with source. This connection strengthens this connection around us, of people. So when we have that space where we're connected to source, we can connect to those around us better. And I know people are going to argue with me. I'm just saying, it just is. Been at this a long time. And I don't care what your source is. I don't care if you're, it doesn't matter what religion you are, but I'm talking about connecting. This connection and being very centered in yourself, balanced in yourself, helps you then to connect with those around you. So that again helps your triggers. So when somebody has said something or done something, or you've read something that's triggering, because the world is full of it. There's so much information everywhere. So much, too much sometimes, but it's great. We just have to know how to filter it. We wouldn't look up Google search terms on our trigger thing. So don't run to it when you see it, realize it for what it is, realize, hey, I'm being triggered. I don't want to fall down this hole. I work with a lot of moms that when they go down that hole, bad things really happen for them. It might trigger their eating disorder situation, or it might trigger, just a lot of really sad things. And sorry, there's a really early airplane, and I didn't close the window. So realize that it's a trigger, and come up with some great coping mechanisms for yourself. Like I said, one of the best ones is to just set down your phone, walk away from the computer, get outside into nature. Get into a place where you know is your happy place. If you don't have a happy place already, then you need to spend today thinking about a happy place. So I moved to my happy place, and I'm going to submit that everybody, if they have their intention, can move to their happy place. I moved here 4 years ago today. We arrived in San Diego, and I came here because I needed the peace, and I actively sought peace. Peace from what I had going on in other places. So I wasn't running away, but I was separating myself. I was disconnecting from that so that I could connect to my people more, my children more, my family more, my husband more. And so you have to really come up with what are you doing to disconnect from those triggers, because you have to find your happy space, and finding your happy space is going to speak volumes for you. So for me, I can be having a really bad day, and I can just say, I'm just going to take a walk, and I can walk down to the beach, because that's my reality. So if I was still in Utah and I needed to find my safe, happy space, I have a list of places that I would go. So wherever you are, you need to really come up with a space that's happy, that helps you get out of your trigger space. And I'm going to say that for our phlegmatic moms, that's going to be harder for you, because you would really just rather curl up on the couch and pull out the melancholy part of you and just stay there. Don't do it. Get up, leave the house, find your happy place. Everybody has one, or a potential to have one. So if you can't, like right now where you live, come up with at least 2-3 places that you could go to that would make you happy and pull you out of a trigger. That's your assignment for the week. Find a space. Find a space that makes you sing, that allows you to disconnect from that energy, because it is just energy, and we have to sort of step away from it. I want you to remember that nobody can rent space in your brain without you allowing them. Nobody. So just don't allow it. Get yourself to a strong enough place where you can say, sorry, you don't get to be in there. Pull it out. You don't have to allow people to rent space in your brain. You don't have to allow people to abuse you. You don't have to allow people to talk to you horribly on the internet. You don't have to allow people in a group setting to be nasty. Make sure that whatever groups you're in have good admins so that you feel safe in that group. And if you don't feel safe in that group, find one that you do feel safe in. Ask Melissa. It's a great group. So find a space where you can feel comfortable and confident that you're not going to be abused on the internet. There's a lot of great groups out there, that I used to be part of, that I think that if you could find a great little community, because I do think it's important to have a community, but communities are diverse, and they should be diverse. So find a community that when things come up, when questions come up, you feel like you can ask those questions. You're not going to be, yelled at for your ignorance, or you're not going to be told that you're just part of the problem. But when you go there to ask questions, then ask questions with genuine sincerity, so that you can also receive genuine answers. So, not with the antagonistic stuff. There's so much hate and bile on the internet, and it makes me so sad to see it within the Waldorf groups that are everywhere. So really trying to be part of the change is really the best solution. So anyways, that's today. Work on your triggers. Everybody has them. I have them, and mine are silly. Well, at least I think they're silly, but that's just where I'm in my life. My biggest trigger is a messy house. Man, that will make me be a nasty person. Not super nasty. But Eric goes, oh, wait a minute, y'all. It's time to clean this house. Your mom needs it. So think about what your triggers are and how do you get away from those. And I think it's a good idea to make sure that your partner knows as well. But don't burden your little kids with it. My older kids know now that obviously order is something that's important to me. And so they are absolutely happy when I say it's time to pick up. They're happy because they know. And even the little ones, even Soraya knows that, hey, it's time to pick up. And they all say, oh, it feels so much better afterwards. So they all know that it feels better. But I'm not burdening them with, oh, this is my trigger. You better make sure that it's cleaned up or I'm going to flip out. Because part of that is on me, figuring out why I flip out, figuring out why I'm not okay with it. So really start to think about deconstructing those triggers and deconstructing why they freak you out and why they stress you out. And yes, we have, family background. My father was a drill sergeant. That's where mine comes from, I'm sure. Couple that with choleric personality, I know that's where it comes from. So deconstruct your own triggers and deconstruct why you have to get angry about it. Deconstruct, can you just take some deep breaths? Can you express yourself in a healthy way? Because that's really what it comes to. So at what age do you start sharing news and tragic information with your child? I don't share... Oh yeah, Stephanie says, what's the root fear? I don't share any information with a child under 9 that is not pertinent to them. So, I can see situations, and I have several African American friends, and we talk about this on a regular basis. Like they feel the need, and rightfully so, to make sure that they educate their children, say, on just the ways people can be nasty, on racism, for sure. So you want to do that, though, in a way that's not going to have them in constant fear. And that's a really delicate situation. But when it comes to things like what happened in Las Vegas, my 6-year-old knows zilch. My 11-year-old doesn't know a whole lot. It's a conversation. Sorry, it's like San Diego's waking up, so it's like every airplane. It's about every 30 seconds. Because they've been not allowed to take off all night long because our airport's in the middle of the city. So there's like a moratorium on what time they can leave. So 6 a.m. is the time, so now they're all taking off. So it's loud. But when it comes to like nuts and bolts of like what happened in Las Vegas last week, the only kids in our house that we're having those conversations with are older ones. My son that's an adult and my daughter that's 16. Because they're asking questions. They're asking questions about, well, gosh, maybe gun control is the answer, or, and so we banty that back and forth. We talk about, well, let's talk about the Constitution then. Let's talk about, it brings a lot of the things that we've been discussing in school back to, the reality. So we studied the Constitution already. So what does that piece of paper mean? How are we putting that in action? How do we look at that? How do we, is it time for a constitutional amendment? Is it time for, so we have these discussions and Eric and I are careful to say, well, this is what our position is right now, but that's not always been our position. Or this is what we feel is right, but we invite you to also study what you think is right. But we work because my oldest son, he's been gone for 2 years on a mission, not having any news, and now he's like, I gotta have the news. I gotta be inundated with it. He's making learning and coming up with his own opinions about things and really trying to figure out where he stands on things, because that's what young people do. So that's what you do when you're 20. You try to figure out where you stand on things. So I often have to say, I can't have this conversation with you right now because I just can't. I'm being triggered. I'm walking away. But no, honestly, when it comes to younger children, though, you don't want to have those conversations with them. And for a couple of reasons, especially when it comes to, say, something like what happened in Las Vegas. I don't want my 6-year-old to be afraid that somebody's just going to start shooting her, because that's not the reality. Yes, it happens, but there are other things that happen at way more frequency. I don't want her worried about being anywhere and having somebody shoot at her. I also don't want my 11-year-old to feel like that. So I want to keep them from that news. I want to make sure I got this whole comment because you asked to see if if you're doing him an injustice. It's not showing me. See more. Oh, that will cause more problems later. No, I don't think it's going to cause any more problems later. Like I said, I really work to giving the answer that they'll ask, if they ask a question like, did something horrible happen? I'll say yes, something horrible happened. Then I look at what can we do as a family. Well, you can absolutely pray for those people, and if prayer is not something that you do, then definitely, keeping those people in your intentions. You can light a candle for them and hope that their spirits cross over peacefully. You can, as a mother, I think about the mothers that lost children that day. I think about the mothers that had children there, that they didn't lose them, but man, they thought to themselves, what in the hell was I thinking? Sorry, I didn't mean to swear. Taking a kid to a concert. Because I've been that mom. I've taken kids to things like that before, and I go, oh wow, that's making me think about that a whole lot more. It's definitely changing how I do some things. I am prayerful for the family of the gunman, because I can't even imagine what they're going through as like, holy cow, we had no idea that was coming. Because then that's like a survivor's guilt almost that comes upon you. So, when it comes to what do I tell the kids, I'm just really careful. And I actually did a video a few weeks ago, I think it was last month, on sort of the same situation, because we had other questions, and it was about the time of the hurricanes, like what do we tell our kids, how do we prepare our kids? So you might want to go back and watch that one. But again, I'm really careful to be very age appropriate. And actually, I was having a conversation with one of the moms from our Thinking Feeling Well group last night, and it was about like what today is. Like in America, today is Columbus Day. We all know Columbus didn't discover America. So, what are we celebrating here? It's a government holiday. It's not something my kids aren't going to wake up and I'm going to go, Happy Columbus Day. Because for one, we don't believe that he discovered America. For two, definitely there were some very questionable things that happened after that. For three, I think it's a bogus holiday. But it's a bank holiday and a holiday that people get off, a holiday that a lot of kids have off from school. Our kids don't have off from school, but a lot of things are closed today. And so, she asked me, how do you talk to your kids about that? So in the course of having our conversation, I had forgotten to ask her how old her kids were. So, I want to be clear that when you have these conversations, I want you to step back and go, okay, I don't really have to have this conversation right now. Especially if it's triggering you and making you frustrated and mad. If you're looking at the news and you're looking at what everybody's saying about Columbus Day today, don't talk to your kids about it. Unless your kids are 14, working on Explorers and up. And you can actually have a conversation about that. So I want you to remember that, in Waldorf, we sort of look at development. And Steiner believed that the intellect was really born at 14. And I have watched that over and over again with my children. There's something that like clicks right into place right about there. And they're not ready for it at 12 and 13. And they're way past it, once they're 16, 17. You can have great adult conversations with them. But don't have a conversation with a child that is under that age, because they're going to get your anger, your fear, your frustration. They're not going to get, why is it again that I'm not supposed to like this holiday? Why? Because they don't understand yet. So don't give them information they're not ready for. But when they are ready for it, you can absolutely. That's one of the joys of homeschooling. If you think that this person in history was a rat bastard, then guess what? You get to tell your kids that. You want to be careful to be not too skewed, though. I'm going to say there have been many topics that have not been my favorite to cover, because I have to show both sides. And in showing both sides, we want to make sure we're very truthful. And we always think that our side is the most truthful. But I always say, this is what I believe. This is how I see this. This is how I perceive this. This is how somebody else might perceive this. This is how somebody else sees about this. And that's a really hard thing. That's probably one of the most humbling things that I do as a mother and a teacher, is put aside my own feelings and frustrations about something and show the other side. For instance, the great vaccine debate. So we, and I'm just going to use that because that's something that we had last year. We have even my second son, he doesn't agree with us, even though I can go, hello, your brother has autism. He does, Mom, let's not have that conversation. So I go, all right, because that's a trigger for me, because I will get heated and passionate about it. Why? Because I got a 20-year-old son with autism. So when we were having the discussions with regards to chemistry and body physiology in 7th and 8th and 9th grade, I had to be like, okay, this is what we believe. This is what we believe the science says. This is why I believe this. But there's people that don't believe that. And I can't say horrible things about them. I mean, I could, but it's not very constructive. I have some choice words about Senator Pan, but the senator in California with SB 277. But when it comes to people that don't believe the same way we do, we have lots of people that we love and that we respect that don't believe the same way we do. So if I give my child all of my bias and only show them and talk to them about the way I feel about things, guess what? I am putting them against people that they know and love. So I want to be able to give them what we believe is truth, and also share with them, this is why other people don't believe that. And this is what they might believe. And this is what you might encounter as you go out into the world. And you're going to be faced with having to come up with your own opinion about that. And that takes time. So, it takes a lot of time. My oldest daughter is an 11th grader this year, and she's in the spot at almost 17 of really working over. She's been, they start this early high school time, and they're like very introspective. What does it mean about me? And then they're looking more about like, what is the world doing? And now it's bringing those pieces together. It's what do I think? What does the world think? And how does that inform me as this growing human being? So we want to be really careful about those things. We want to be honest. You wouldn't definitely say, oh, well, let's talk about why slavery could be good. You don't want to talk about that, because that would be erroneous. You want to definitely talk about, these are the horrible things that happen because of X, Y, and Z. These are the things but then at the same time, you want to be able to say, here are the people that fought for that cause. Here are the people that, here are some of the reasons why we still have racism in this country. We still struggle with this as Americans, and I'm speaking mostly to Americans because we don't have these struggles, these very stressful, triggering struggles that happen in our country don't happen largely in other places like they happen here. So we have to examine that. Why is that? Why is it that we still live in a country that can't figure that out after more than 200 years? So what's going on there? So I want you. I guess I'm inviting you. If this is something that you're really passionate about and really struggling about, I want to invite you to step back and look at your kids and look at what is it that you want them to know and understand. What is it that do you want to fill them full of just your anger and hate about it? Or do you want to step back and say, I'm not a victim. I am standing up. I'm rising. And I'm going to give you information when it's appropriate, when it's age appropriate. And that, that goes for Columbus Day. That goes for talking about sex. That goes for talking about slavery. That goes for all of those things, because it is much more than what you can pour into a 6-year-old or what you can pour into an 8-year-old. You want to make sure that you're giving it in an appropriate time, because then they get it. Then it sits with them. Then they think it over. Then they make their own opinions about it. Then they can see it happening in the world. You can't see that if you're giving it to them out of context. So, and the same would go for any horrific world events like what happened in Las Vegas. You can talk about it. A perfect time to talk about that would be in those high school years when you're talking about physiology, you're talking about brain chemistry. 11th and 12th grade are a lot about, with the chemistry, they're a lot about like physical chemistry. So 11th grade, you're talking about the chemistry differences between plants and animals, and body chemistry, what's going on in your body, what's going on in your mind. Those are 11th, 12th grade topics. And they're topics that you can start to discuss when they're, 14 and up, but they're really going to be getting it because you've layered all of this information over time. So they're really going to get a much fuller understanding of it when you bring it when they're older. I hope that helps. I know that that's a roundabout way of answering some of the questions that I've gotten. And there's a lot of moms that will disagree with me and say, absolutely not. I have to tell them all the horrors of the world when they're 8. And for those moms, I am just, again, my only plea is to please take a deep breath. It's not about whitewashing anything. It's not about it's not about giving false senses of history. It's about helping them understand when it's an appropriate time so that they can do something with that information. We want them to be able to do something with that information. And if we're giving it to them at the wrong time, it's very much burdening them, overburdening them. And then, we may be negating other things that we're doing within having this education at home. So bring it in a very kind way. There are always times that you can bring up things. You can absolutely, because kids will ask, oh, I heard all these Columbus Day commercials on the radio. What the heck is Columbus Day all about? So then you have the opportunity. You can give a keyhole bit of information. You can say, and this would be my conversation, I would say, there's a lot of people that think that Columbus discovered America, but we know he didn't. Why do we know he didn't? Well, we know there are all these people that got here first. And we know that there were all these people that did all these things that happened way before that. And then we might go, well, let's talk about what, and this is a conversation, how with an 11-year-old plus, not with a 6-year-old. I might say, well, what do we think about that? Well, I think that it ushered in some things that were not great that happened afterwards. But then with an older child, I can say, where would we be without those things? Because there were horrible things that happened for sure, but where would we be without those things? What would our world look like otherwise? And it can open a conversation, a deeper conversation with an older child. Definitely not with a 6-year-old. We have those same sorts of conversations at Thanksgiving. So American Thanksgiving is very whitewashed on a regular basis. I will openly say that. So we will step back and we will say, let's talk about the first Thanksgiving, because that first Thanksgiving with the Puritans and some of the natives was probably not horrible. They were working together. But then that ushered in what else came after that? Well, it brought more people over here who then did do some very horrible things in the understanding of, we're progress. These people need what we have. So, but again, that's not a conversation I have with a 6-year-old. With a 6-year-old, I would say, well, this is today for our family. This is about being together. We don't talk about. I don't talk about those stories. And people will say, how can you not teach your kids about Thanksgiving? And I go, well, because they're not ready for the conversation I want to have with them about it. So we might say, this is an American holiday. This is why people celebrate it. And leave it at that when they're 6. When they're 10, I might say, this is an American holiday. This is why people celebrate it. I don't think it's a great thing to celebrate for X, Y, and Z. When they're 16, we might say, let's talk about what actually happened. When they're adults, we might say, well, what do you think about that? What things do you want to bring to that? What things do you hope that people understand about it without, spewing everything that you believe to everybody? So it's a progress. It's a process. It's a process that starts with one conversation and it builds from there. So you want to be really careful about, what you're bringing to them and how you're bringing it. Again, you don't want them to be living in fear. The Waldorf curriculum and this way of life and living is all about keeping childhood magical. So you want to keep it magical in a world that is increasingly less magic. So you have to make sure that you strongly cultivate that and that you protect that in your home. And do it at whatever cost. Hold the space. Keep yourself in a good place. Shield them from things that they don't need to know. I would say you want to shield them as much as I would say don't let them go off and watch a PG-13 movie when they're 6. Same stuff. It may be truth versus fiction, but same stuff. You want to shield them. You want to keep them in that nice place. And, and gradually you're expanding their sphere of understanding. So I hope that helps. I been trying to end this video for 5 minutes now, but things keep coming up. So I want to make sure that that's helpful to you. And if you have questions, feel free to disagree with me. I get it. People disagree with me all the time, but I want you to know that I come from a place of peace. I come from a place of understanding, of working to see other people's sides of things and help and see their understanding of things. And it may not jive with my understanding of things. We don't have to agree. We don't have to share other people's opinions. And one thing I will say before I close here, discourse is lost in our society right now because everybody thinks that if you don't think what I think, then I hate you. And that's not where we need to be. We need to be in a place of being able to have discourse, be able to have disagreements, and not let it bring out the hate and anger in us. And it's sort of that's not the reality right now. So be the change you want to be. Be the person that can have discourse and disagree with somebody and not take it to a hateful place. That's about having peace. That's about owning peace, and about being balanced within yourself. So I will leave you with that. I hope you have a wonderful week. I hope that you can be in a place of peace. I hope that you will examine some of the things that are triggering you and look at what's sort of why you're upset, and sort of help yourself into that and out of that space. Find a happy place so that you can, hopefully be in a good space and be there for your kids, because that's why we're here, right? That's it's about this parenting journey. And so anyway, I hope you have a great week. Bye now.